What's going on, everyone? CyberOptic here with a brand new video for you today, and in this video we're going to be talking about the brand new update for Realm Royale. Now, as many of you guys know, this game was sort of abandoned a while back. The developers kind of moved on to other projects and haven't really put out an update for this game in a very long time. But here this last week, they have released a new update for this game, and it is quite amazing. They have done some remarkable changes to this game. I couldn't be happier with a lot of the changes that they made. So in this video, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about some of the new changes to the game. I'll be kind of pointing out some of the things I liked and I disliked, and maybe some future changes that could be brought to the game. But those are just things that we're going to talk about inside of this video. So anyways, let's go. So the first big change that I have to talk about when it comes to the new update in Realm Royale is, of course, armor drops. Now, this is an old system that used to be in the game a long time ago. This is something that they brought back, and this is a really exciting addition back into this game. One of the things that these armor pieces do is they give you certain abilities that you would normally get using runes. The game had like a rune system in it before, but now you can get some of those things just by adding and upgrading the armor that you get out of chests. So for example, the leg pieces that they have, they actually help you with mount speed, and they help you with your movement speed as well. So you no longer have to depend on RNG to find these things inside of chests. Every player can have them just by finding the armor pieces and upgrading. Now, I think that this is a great addition, especially for new players who may not understand the rune system very well in the game, but it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. It gives everybody the same ability to get the same sort of buffs inside of the game. So I think that this was a much needed change, and I was really excited to see this brought back to Realm Royale. The second major change that came with this new update was that the game finally returned back to a class-based system. Now, this is something that the community has asked for a very long time for. Originally, when Realm came out, you had classes, and your weapons and your movements and your abilities and stuff were kind of tied to that class. But a while back, the game made some changes where basically you could pick up any weapon as any class. So if you were a warrior, you could pick up a sniper rifle, or vice versa. You could pick up a hammer as an assassin. It made the game feel a little bit generic, and I know that there were good intentions behind making these changes. They were definitely trying to level some things out inside the game, but that's not really what Realm was. Realm was a class-based game, and that's what set it apart from every other BR. So returning to the class-based system was a major change. It was definitely needed for this game, and I'm so glad to see that it is finally back inside of Realm Royale. The third thing I wanted to talk about in this video is the addition of a brand new movement for the hunter, which of course I'm talking about the grappling hook. Now, I thought this was an amazing idea, especially since they were going back to a class-based system where you had a movement ability that was tied to your class. With a lot of the other classes like the assassin and the warrior and the mage, there was some verticality that you could get out of these movements. But with the hunter, if they had kept the dodge roll in there, there really is no verticality with the dodge roll. And so they decided to add the grappling hook into the game. And so far, I've been seeing some amazing clips come out of the community using this. I just thought that this was very well thought out. I think that it really helps the hunter class out, and especially since they did go back to a class-based system where you can only use the movement abilities of your class. And so the grappling hook was just an amazing addition to this game. I'm so glad it made it in, and I think that the developers did a really good job with this ability. Now, the one strike that I will give to the movement abilities has to do with the assassin's blink in the game. With the addition of the grappling hook, the hunter can actually cover a lot of ground now with it. The mage, of course, still has its long flying ability, and the leap is pretty deadly too. You can get a lot of distance with the leap, and it has a damage if you land on top of a character. So with the assassin's blink still kind of being the same, it does feel a little underwhelming compared to some of the other movement abilities. I would like to see the developers add a little distance to the blink. I think that that would really help to sort of balance these out. But overall, that's really the only problem that I see currently in the game when it comes to movement abilities. Another major change that came with this update was some changes to the weapons. Now, this was entirely necessary for this game. Anyone who played this game over that long period of time where there were no updates, it was very obvious that there were some weapons that were just way too strong and some that were completely unutilized. One of the weapons that I'm talking about is, of course, the heirloom for the assassin. Several patches ago, they did a lot of nerfs to the heirloom, and nobody really used it anymore. It wasn't really a viable weapon in the game. Now, as an assassin using a sniper rifle, usually you want to play from long range. However, in a battle royale, you have a circle that's pushing everybody together, so you can't always play from a long range as an assassin. And so a secondary weapon was really needed for this class. So I'm glad to see the changes to the heirloom. They increased the fire rate, they increased the damage a little bit, they made it a viable secondary weapon for the assassin, and it was definitely needed for this game. Another major change that they made was, of course, to the crossbow. And again, this was a weapon that had some very bad updates done to it. It was nerfed terribly and nobody used it anymore. So again, they increased the fire rate on it. I think they may have increased the damage as well. And they made it a viable secondary weapon for the longbow, which again is supposed to be a long range weapon, even though most people use it as close range. But these were definitely changes that needed to happen in the game. Some of these weapons were just underutilized. They did not fit their original purpose. And for the end game where you're going up against a warrior's axe or you're going up against that 3-round ice staff, you need to have a secondary weapon for your long range characters that can compete with some of those other classes. Now, as well as some of the weapons in this update getting a buff, there were also a couple of nerfs that came inside of this update as well. One of the first weapons that comes to mind right offhand is, of course, the axe. Now, anyone who played with the axe prior to this update will know that it was a very strong weapon. Usually you could take an enemy out with only 3 or 4 axes. And when you compared it to other strong weapons in other classes, such as the sniper rifle of the assassin, you could throw 3 or 4 axes for every 1 sniper shot, making it a really strong weapon to counter as an assassin. Now, obviously, you would not use the sniper rifle up close against the warrior, but like I said previously, in a battle royale, eventually you're going to get pushed closer and closer to the enemy. And so that's where the buffs to the heirloom were really necessary. I do feel like the axe versus the heirloom, I do feel like there's still a little bit of balancing left to do in those two classes. However, I do feel like the axe is in a much better place now than it was prior to the update. Another class that saw some major changes to its weapons inside of this update is, of course, the mage class. Now, prior to the update, the mage class had its ice staff and its 3-round stone staff. However, this has now been rearranged a little bit. The ice staff has become the fire staff, which shoots out a fireball that's got a burn effect on it. And then, of course, the stone staff is now turned into the ice staff, and it has a really cool animation with it. Now, overall, I think that these were much needed changes to this class. For me personally, this is a class that I just don't use that often. However, I do feel like these changes make it a little bit more exciting to use. The only one dink that I would give to it is that I do wish that they would increase the fire rate on the ice staff just a little bit, especially since we saw fire rate increases to both the assassin and the hunter. I do feel like that would be a necessary change for this class, maybe just reduce the damage and increase the fire rate a little bit. But overall, I do feel like these were very well thought out changes, and I do think that they were very necessary for this class. Another point when it comes to the weapons that I have to give the development team kudos for is the fact that they kept it down to only 2 weapons per class. Balancing has obviously always been a little bit of an issue at Realm Royale, and the development team really wanted to get it right this time. They wanted to make sure that the weapons that they had in the game, the first 2 that they've released, were very well balanced before they decided to add any new weapons to the game. This is obviously a huge thing. I give them a lot of credit for this. Obviously, I give a lot of criticisms to games like Warzone, where they had 40 plus weapons with Modern Warfare in it, and then they tried to add another 40 weapons from Cold War. And the next thing you know, you've got 80 weapons inside this game that you're trying to balance, and it created some horrible metas. So Realm really does not want to make that mistake. They want to make sure that their weapons are balanced properly. And so deciding to only start with 2 class weapons to begin with and really get those right, I think that that was a very smart idea. And I think that they are on the right track with getting the weapons balanced inside of this game. The next thing I want to talk about in this video are, of course, the abilities. Now, with the new update, we also got some new abilities. They also brought back some old ones as well. One of the abilities that they brought back was, of course, the Fireball, which is a really cool ability. You can use it with the Mage class, and you can stack it on top of the Fire Staff. So that was a welcome addition to the game. A couple of the new abilities that came to the game. The first one is the decoy for the assassin. This allows you to drop a decoy and turn invisible for a brief period of time, and the decoy sort of acts like a turret, but it does very minimal damage, so I don't think that this is going to be a huge problem or anything. The next ability that comes to mind is, of course, the Enrage for the warrior. Now, this increases your attack speed and it gives you a little bit of life steal. So this is going to be a really cool thing for especially the sword warriors out there. And then, of course, they brought a new one called Lightfoot. Now, what this does is this gives you the ability to jump higher. I think that this one's going to be really cool, especially as we start seeing some good trick shot videos come out of the community. I can't wait to see how they use it. But overall, these were some very welcome changes to the game. The game really needed some new abilities, and I think the development team did a very good job with bringing these abilities to the game. Now, as well as just adding some new abilities to the game, they also changed up the ability system a little bit. Before, you could pick one support and you could pick one offensive ability, but they've kind of changed that up now to where you can basically stack any abilities, and this gives you a little bit more freedom in the game, and I actually really like this. It does give you a little bit more freedom to kind of do some different builds, try some different things out. Since it is a class-based system now and your movement abilities and stuff are locked, you don't have a whole lot of freedom with that, but having the freedom with the abilities does give it a little bit extra dimension, and I really like this. So I think it's going to be really interesting going forward to see how people use this. It would be kind of interesting to test it out at some point and see what it would be like with 3 abilities. I don't know if this would be something that they would try out or not, but I think it would be kind of cool to at least try it out a little bit and just see how it works. Now, the only one strike that I have against the abilities is that once you pick up 2 abilities, they're kind of locked in that slot, and you either have to go into your inventory and drop them and re-pick them up, or you have to pick up a new ability and kind of swap them around. It would be cool to see a hotkey added to the game that allows you to just swap these abilities real quick. I think that that would be something that would be needed with this new system. So hopefully that's something that they will take into consideration and add to the game later on. Another new addition that came with this new update was the addition of a class-based chest. Now, previously in the game, you only had one chest that you opened and you got all of your items out of it. But here with the update, they've added a new chest that basically gives you all of your class weapons. I thought that this was a great addition to the game, especially since we've gone back to a class-based system. I think having those chests in the game will really help players out a lot. Plus, it seems like you get a little bit more shards now, and since the prices in the Forge have kind of gone up, it was probably necessary for the game. So this was a really cool change, and I'm glad they added this into the game. The last thing I want to kind of talk about when it comes to all the new updates to the game is, of course, them doing away with the mastery system. Now, this is a really big deal. If you were a new player to Realm Royale and you didn't have any of your mastery skills built up and you were going against someone who's maybe had 1,000 hours in the game, a lot of times you were getting owned and you really didn't know why. This was most likely because they were getting damage buffs and stuff due to their mastery level. And so Hi-Rez decided to do away with this mastery system, at least for the meantime. I think this is huge because this sort of levels the playing field for new players a little bit. They don't have to worry about, well, you know, someone's going to be stronger than me because they've been playing it longer than me. You know, it kind of levels that out a little bit. I think that this was a major change that was needed in this game. And again, I give Hi-Rez a lot of credit for making this change because I think that this was extremely smart on their part. So now that I've gotten most of the major parts of the update out of the way, I did want to talk real quickly about some changes that I would like to see eventually happen inside of this game. Now, I did mention a few of these throughout the video, such as the blink of the assassin being extended and a hotkey where you could hot swap your abilities in the middle of the game. But there were just a couple others that I wanted to mention real quickly. First and foremost, the Gatling gun. It just feels entirely too strong right now. I was able to wipe out an entire trio by myself using it the other night. Now, this is a weapon that you get in drops, and obviously you should be able to get some better weapons out of these drops. But the Gatling gun to me just feels like it's a little bit strong right now and needs just a little bit more work. The second suggestion I had was to extend the radius of the blast arrow a little bit. To me, with the fireball being in the game now and the conch, you know, both of these abilities have a pretty good radius to them. But I feel like the blast arrow is a little underwhelming. It just needs a little bit of extra love just to kind of extend that radius a little bit, make it a little bit more viable for the hunter. But this is another change that I would really like to eventually see come to this game. The third suggestion that I have, at one point in this game, whenever you first dropped out of the blimp, there was no circle. And they eventually added the circle into the game because the lobbies were getting smaller and they used it to kind of push players into certain parts of the map to kind of push them together. But now that the lobbies are growing and more people are coming back to the game, I'd really like to see a return back to the way it originally was, where there was no circle at the beginning of the game and you were sort of left guessing of where the first circle was going to hit. So this is a change that I would really like to eventually see come back to Realm Royale. So this concludes my video on the brand new update for Realm Royale. Now, here at the end of the video, I just want to give a huge shout out to the development team and all of the team over there at Hi-Rez for this update, because it is just absolutely amazing. You can tell that there was a lot of time and heart and consideration that was put into this update, and I think that the team just did a remarkable job. They just really hit it out of the park with this update. And then, of course, Thor. I've got to give Thor some credit too. You know, he's part of our community now, working for Hi-Rez, and he's been listening to us gripe and complain for a couple years now. He really listened to the community. He knew what the community wanted, and he worked very hard to make sure that he gave the community exactly what they were asking for. So Thor, thank you very much too. You did an amazing job. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you would, please leave likes or comments down below and make sure and hit that subscribe button because it really helps this channel out a lot. Also, make sure you're following me on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/cyberoptic. I am back to streaming Realm Royale again, so please come by and say hello whenever you get the opportunity. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video.